Welcome back, everyone. You know who I am, and I can't wait for you to meet. Well, most of you have probably met, but you get to meet again my friend Anne Duffy. Meet Anne Duffy. She is the visionary CEO and founder behind Dental Entrepreneur Media, a platform designed to revolutionize the dental profession. Through her digital platforms, podcasts, print magazines, and retreats, Dan, Dan Anne has created vibrant communities of dental influencers who share their inspiring stories in Dental Entrepreneur, the Future of Dentistry, and Dental Entrepreneur Women magazines, which many of you who are regular listeners may recall have been on my podcast. Please welcome to the show, Anne. Thank you, Anne.
Hi, Greg. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on this show. You know, from the first time that I met you, I actually met you before I met you because so many of those who have been inspired by you and have learned from your mentorship have talked about all of the great programs, all the great things that you do. And so to have an opportunity to have you on the show really just warms my heart and gets me so excited. So thank you for saying yes and for coming on the show and sharing all of your inspiration with my entire listening audience today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Anytime I can share a dose of inspiration, I'm all for it. So,
There you go.
fire
Well,
away.
I want to start with your origin story. So, how is it? I love asking people, how did you get involved with dental? Because I find it so fascinating how those have like found their way into this fantastic industry that we all know and love.
Well, for me, it was my dentist and my dental hygienist when I probably a junior in high school said, you should be a dental hygienist. And I was like, oh, never thought about it, but I wanted to go to Ohio State. I'm one of 5 kids, and I had to have a reason to go to Ohio State. And they had a great dental hygiene program. And really, I fell into dental hygiene. And fun story, I remember coming home the first summer from college and saying to my mom and dad, I really want to switch careers and do something social work or help people and all that kind of thing. And ended up getting in dental hygiene, the first year I applied. And so the rest is history. I have been in the career for so long, and I just I love my career in dental hygiene.
Well, Anne, I have to say, we started off really, really well. And I'm sure that friends of mine in the industry, like Stacy Pfeffer Farley and Elijah Desmond, just love the fact that you're a Buckeye. But as somebody who bleeds maize and blue and the Michigan Wolverines, I don't know if this is going to go well for you the rest of our time
I shouldn't have
together.
dropped. You're saying I shouldn't have dropped that. Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Well, listen. I married a Penn State fan, and I did sign that prenup agreement that I wouldn't really root for
Admit
Ohio
me
State.
lying. Well,
Yeah.
at least the B1G got much larger and we welcomed in all those West Coast schools. So, I know a lot of Trojans and Bruins and Ducks and Huskies. I'm married to a Husky. So, yeah, they all wanted a part of what we have. So I guess we can find some common ground there. But I
I'm sure
digress.
we
I
can.
digress. So I'm curious too, since, I mean, it sounds like, from a very young age, that you found your way into dental and that you loved it. So tell me a little bit then about your journey going from being a hygienist to where you are today, which so many of my listeners, right? There's such a broad audience from clinicians to those that are in the manufacturing side to those that are finding their way into entrepreneurship or have thought about it or get inspired by. So walk me through what that journey looked like for someone like yourself who has found their way into that part of their journey.
Well, it's a good story. Tom and I married. We met in college, and we moved all around with his career. And so dental hygiene really lended itself to having a career alongside of his career anywhere we moved. So I took 7 state boards, and by the time we landed in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that was over 30 years ago. So Tom comes home, he says, I'm going to quit my corporate job and I'm going to start my own business. And I thought, great, we'll be millionaires right away because he's so smart and he's cute and all that good stuff. And, about a year and a half in, basically we were sucking wind and broke, and it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So schlepping the kids around, somebody had to do it, and I loved it. And so I was doing 2 days of hygiene, and I started my first side gig, and because I needed a way to make more money. And each side gig lent itself to the next side gig. And gosh, I had my own breast center. I had a networking with toothpaste and mouthwash with OxyFresh. I had the biggest team of dental professionals, female dental professionals in the company. Then I met a guy on the trade show floor that was just launching Dental Entrepreneur and going up against dental economics. And he switched gears and decided to go to the dental school. So it was going to be called Dental Entrepreneur Business Beyond the Classroom. And he called me up out of the blue about 2 months later, and he says, "Hey, can you come on board and sell advertising for us for this magazine?" And I'm like, "Well, sure. Yeah, I think I could do that. It can't be that hard." And so I was doing 2 days of hygiene, working my networking business. And the networking, of course, was because I totally believed in the products. And I was like, oh my God, the whole world needs to hear about these. And then came on board and sold advertising and helped him launch Dental Entrepreneur, Business Beyond the Classroom. And 3 years later, as a journalist, he had no passion for dentistry. And he's like, "I don't want to do this anymore." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I think I want to carry it on." And he owed me some money, and we just parted ways very friendly and very happily. And I took over Dental Entrepreneur. And so that led me to, getting the authors and the marketers still continuing to sell ads, and using his team of graphic designers and printers and all of that. And I did that for a number of years, juggling a couple of side gigs and always continuing my dental hygiene career. And it scaled back. I was 2 days a week in dental hygiene, then I was 1 day a week in dental hygiene. And after my 46th year, I think probably the last couple of years, I was 5 hours a week in dental hygiene. And I just retired. I came back after COVID and retired in 2020 from clinical. But I can still wield a scaler pretty well, and I miss it, Greg. I loved being in the clinic atmosphere. I love my patients, love the team I worked with, my dentist. And we used to come together, and we fought a little bit. I raised him well, and anyway, here I am now. About 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I had a phone call with a good friend. She was bullied in her review. I was livid. I was like, her boss told her smile wasn't sincere and it looked like she was plotting something. And I'm like, that's insane. She was one of the most sincere people I know. And just in that moment, decided to start another magazine for women in dentistry. And that evening, I just said to Tom, my hubby, I said, well, I'll just call it Dental Entrepreneur Woman. I already have Dental Entrepreneur. And that's how Dental Entrepreneur Woman was conceived. And that is, morphed into, more than just a magazine to highlight women. It's inspirational, it's empowering. And the most important thing we do is connect all women in dentistry in all career paths. And so it has been a joy in my life. And it's not me, it is all the women that have come through the door. They're amazing, women in dentistry. And I love the guys too. I told you, you're a dude. If you're a man and you're in dentistry and you're supporting women, you're a dude. So we all come together with this.
And I love hearing that too, right? To be an ally to women in dentistry, I think is critically important. I think uplifting anyone in dentistry. And I love the story that you shared, right? About somebody who, really was not being treated fairly, or somebody who just wasn't being nice, right? That I don't understand. It doesn't cost anything to be nice. I can understand though one piece, which is there's something to branding, right? Of a practice, of a group. I get that piece, but there's ways to be able to express that, right? If there is a lack of genuine or authenticity that's coming through, there's ways to be able to express that, right? But to simply treat somebody poorly, there's really no reason for that. And out of that, right, you coming to someone's defense and saying, "Oh, that's just not okay. I'm not gonna take that lying down." And suddenly, you know what, Tom? I have an idea. I'm just going to add on the word woman, and I'm going to create this next, right? So tell me a little bit about what that looked like in the early stages, right? Because I know what it's like early stages as an entrepreneur, and any new venture, right? I know for me, it's always, I look at things like, oh, adding a new vertical of revenue, or maybe we should try on this new pair of shoes. There's always like that, ooh, I wore those too long and now my foot sore, or, I've got a blister on the back of my heel, or you name it, right? So what were some of those for you as you went out into this new area of opportunity, this new venture with Dental Entrepreneur Woman and that aspect of your new business?
Well, first of all, it was pretty easy for me because I knew how to publish a magazine, and all, and but when I think back on it, Greg, I mean, it was in July that I hung the phone up, and our first magazine went to print and was launched at the Hinman that year, and the next year in March. And so it took that long to get the website up, to get the magazine, to get the authors, to get the wheels turning. And that's all I really wanted to do. I didn't even start a membership until probably a year and a half or 2 years in. Well, first of all, because it was, it was necessary to start a membership. I mean, I was funding all of this, and Tom came up to me and goes, Ann, this is a great nonprofit. We got to quit funding it ourselves. And how can we keep this thing going? And because it was gaining momentum, women were like, now, and I hear this all the time. I just heard it this morning. I was on another call, and where have we been all their lives? It's very lonely to be an owner of a business, owner of a dental office, owner of anything, and because you work really on your baby the whole time. And so it's nice to be able to have a community of people that will lift you up, support you, hear the highs, the lows, and give you some solutions to the problems we're having. So I think that's how we have grown. And also, Greg, my contention is all women are entrepreneurs. So with Do, I don't really care what you're doing in dentistry. Just a toe dipped in dentistry, or you maybe were in dentistry at some time. It's about women. They just happen to have had dental experience because, women just love getting together in community. And most of the time, what we're talking about, well, no, I shouldn't say most of the time, because it's really morphed into the dental entrepreneur space. There's so many women that are having a side gig. They love the profession. They want to stay in the profession. And so, how do you build a side gig? And with all the expertise that we have within our community, the answer is always in the ladies' room.
Yeah, you really touched on something there. And when you started talking about owners, founders, individual practices in the dental office, it really is siloed for the most part, unless you're a part of a DSO. And even in that scenario, right, or an emerging group, it still can be very siloed about the practice itself, about the organism, about the culture itself. It is very isolating, right? And you call it, community, right? Building the community. And it's a lot of the work that we do at G&A Consult when we come in and we're working with these founders, working with these teams. A lot of what we're helping to create is connection outside of the limited scope of what they have exposure to. And certainly, clinicians will go and get more clinical skill in whatever realm. In our realm, it's, the full arch, the all on four, dental implants, but certainly it can be in clear aligner therapy. It can be in, you name it, right? There are conferences and whatnot. And, for hygienists there are, and for, ADOM for office managers, and I can go right down the list. However, that reaching outside of, for not just for the clinical and not just for business, but also for the social aspect, to be able to reach out and say, here's some of the challenges that we're facing currently. And to find that being able to bring best practices from all the different practices that we work with, and just having that exposure to, really brings in this connection and helps them to overcome that isolation that happens. And I think that's what you're talking about with the group that you have, and with what you're helping to empower women to have, is to be able to share that community and share that connection. Am I hearing you right?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's really been organic growth, and it's evolved from day one. It's interesting because I think, as a business owner, as a woman with kids and husbands, families, all that sort of stuff, um, it's sometimes harder to talk to your neighbor, or to somebody in your office, or somebody that knows you, implicitly. It's sometimes better to talk to somebody that doesn't know you, doesn't know your circumstance, not going to be judging you for, what you wore to, church on Sunday, and just be there for you, just because that's what it's all about. And so I think that's another beautiful part of Do, is we bring women in from all over the place, and all over in their careers and life ages. There's sage advice. The mentors and mentees switch gears or switch sides all the time. I've been mentored by these young, beautiful women that, I've met through Do. And I marvel at the fact that honestly, I wouldn't know them if it weren't for Do. There's so many women that I have gotten to know in dentistry. And, you and I both know the people in dentistry are amazing. They're wonderful people. They're smart. They're, they're giving. They love learning, and they love beauty, all of those things. They're just cool people. And the more that we can get to know each other and build the friendships and the community across the aisle, I think the better the profession will be.
Well, and that connection piece, right? That and learning from others outside of the, I don't want to say the normal scope of what we have relationship within currently. I know for myself, coming from the manufacturing side, we would know other people in the manufacturing space, other vendors that were in our same lane. And what I've been learning, right, is there's a whole nother world out there, right? Those that come from operations, those like yourself that the dental hygienist pool of talent is so immense. But it was an area, because I was in dental implants for the better part of 18 years. Dental hygienists weren't really a part of, they were ancillary, right? Oh, well, just make sure you have good hygiene on those hybrids that we have the doctors placing implants and then the prosthesis on top, right? It was an afterthought. I mean, I don't mean to sound, condescending at all, but it really was, right? Because it was driving that top line number. And you were talking about it as well. It's the learning from all aspects of all parts of the industry. And as we network and as I network, I really learn about the beauty of what all these individuals from all different aspects of dentistry bring. And I can learn so much from my heart, right? It's a different type of learning and skill set. And I find it just absolutely fascinating. And it leads me into, it really leads me into the next, right? Because what I find, and it's a really blanket statement, you can slam me down as this is being completely wrong. But as I see more women leadership coming forward, which there's a desperate need for it, the the challenge, I think, in dentistry in general is this uber competition of how many arches do you place? What's the production numbers? And defining success solely by a P&L statement, not by how rich is your culture? How do you support people when fill in the blank? And lifting up more female leadership that tends to be more, let's just say, more heart-centered leaders. Okay, let's not even define it as male or female, right? Let me course correct myself right here and now. And Mervs is my producer, do not edit that out. In general, let me just say straight up, as heart-led leaders, right, heart forward leaders, do you find that we're seeing more of a movement in that direction, with more female leaders coming into the fold? Because you talked about the side gig piece, which absolutely, but as we start to see more females feeling empowered in leadership, as we see groups like yours, and there's others, right? Women in DSO and others that women are stepping into their power. And I love to see it. And as somebody who, I do like, women are some of my best friends, I love to see it in dentistry. Do you see that happening, or is it just my perspective at the moment today?
No, I think it's happening all across every business. Certainly in this country, soft skills are coming ahead of just hard skills, if you will. It's great to be real strategic and all of those things, but really what's going to build your culture is being able to understand people and being able to communicate well, the soft skills. And women have that intuitively. And we build on that. That means something. And I think we're teaching men that that's important because they see more of the bottom line. We see all of it together, and all of it's important. All of it's important, but I don't think um, when you focus strictly on the numbers and what you've done, what you've accomplished at the end of the day, that doesn't sustain itself. That can't sustain your team. That can't sustain the community that you're serving. You really have to be able to really care um, about the person in the chair and the person that's working side by side with you to provide the kind of treatment and care that we want to give to people around the world. It really is I think it's definitely shifted. And I think it's time for women to take the leadership role. Typically there has not been, there haven't been that many seats available. So women have been a little competitive. If there's one seat, the boardroom looks like all men, maybe one woman. And that, honestly, Greg, I thought we were further along when I started this, because I didn't really feel it until I got, chatting with everybody in different career paths. But we have a long way to go. And I think we're making great strides because we're taking on those leadership roles, because we see a way to be able to do that, Greg, with balance and with care and with locking arms with community and people that will help support us, on the good days and on the bad days.
Yeah, and especially in, the fix full arch, the teeth in a day, the lane that we're in at GNA Consult in our group, and what I've been able to build and grow, being uber competitive, absolutely metrics driven. Don't get me wrong, it's critically important. But so much of what I speak on now is the patient experience and making the emotional connection with the patient. And if the culture isn't set well in that realm with your team, how on earth are you going to do that with a patient? How is that going to happen in order to be successful? It's just, there's almost like this incongruency if you're not building a culture that's heart led and that has making emotional connections with your team members. You cannot do it with patients, because they'll see that inconsistency and they'll see that it's not authentic with your brand. And it's just so critically important. So I appreciate that. Well, Anne, this is the part of the program. Every one of my guests get to play a little something called What the Sleuth is Going On? It's 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
Okay. I'm excited.
Question number 1.
Okay.
What's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered?
Oh my gosh. I would say my son's dog. That was probably the worst. Unfortunately, the little pup had to have all his teeth extracted because, or I should say she. Yeah, that would be the worst. That would be the worst. But she's good now.
And we are like 70 some episodes into the Two Sleuth podcast. I think that's the first time we've had a dog reference. I think we'll have to go back, but thank you. That's a first. Well done. Okay. Question number 2. If you could go back. Oh, I'm sorry. Question number 2 is, if you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. I just love my smile. I'm all good with it. I don't know. No, I don't. That's a tough one. Gosh, I've had Invisalign, I've had whitening. I mean, come on.
Same.
Yeah.
She has an amazing smile. So anybody who's listening audio, go onto the YouTube channel at about the 22-minute mark and look at Anne's smile, because she smiled really broad when she said that. It's true. You have an amazing smile. It's true.
Well, let me just say one thing. I think the one thing I would change about my smile, I wish I would have brushed and flossed better when I was a kid. I wouldn't have any crowns. So There you go. That's
there you go. Okay, see, as a hygienist, thank you. If you didn't come up with something, the socials would have blown up with that. Be like, really, Anne? Your dentist probably would have come on
more
here.
time to think about
Called you out on that one. So good. See, authentic and honest, right? We have to show up the way we show up. All right, there you go. Okay, now question number 3. If you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product, and no, you can't choose your own if you've invented something, which one would you choose and why?
Okay. Well, I would just say it was I'm not going to give the name of the company that I rep, but I loved the idea of having stabilized chlorine dioxide in a product, because that makes a huge difference. It made a huge difference in my life and a lot of people's lives, because I had my fresh breath center. And you asked about bad breath. That's so funny. I used to be able to give people the confidence that they could have a very good life and not worry about their breath without that product line. So it was toothpaste and mouth rinse with stabilized chlorine dioxide. That I wish I would have invented it, because I would still be running that company.
Well, see, there you go.
There you go.
I love it. All
that a
right,
good
Anne.
answer?
Well,
I don't
thank
even
you
know.
for playing. Every
That's
guest
great.
plays. I mean, this has been going on for 70 some odd episodes. So
I should have
thank you.
listened.
Yeah.
Are these the same questions that you ask everybody at every?
Every single guest. Every
I
single
knew I
guest. The
should have. I'm
same
gonna
thing.
just shame on me for not listening to your podcast because I should have been a little bit more prepared. But that was like, yeah, first thought. You're
All
funny.
right,
I
so
can't wait to go back
all
and
my
listen.
regular listeners, we don't do shame, but we do guilt. So you can guilt Anne in the notes, like just over and over. Everybody listening, especially the entire Do community, just pound her. Would be like, seriously, Anne, you came on and you weren't prepared. Isn't this something we talk
Yeah,
about? Show up prepared. I
I
don't know. I don't
know. I
even know if that's
know.
a thing. I'm just really giving you a hard time. Told you this would be
It's
fun.
okay.
Well, Anne, in the
It
last few
is fun.
minutes, I want to respect your time and all of my listening audience's time. So, anything I haven't asked you or anything you'd like to share with my listening audience before we close out the podcast episode?
I would love to invite any woman that's out there that's listening, especially. Please join us for our retreat in November because I think we're going to have 220 women in the room that are just like you, that'll be there to lock arms and really support you in what you're doing in this world. And if anybody wants to write for us, I told you, Greg, please, we're looking for authors for Dental Entrepreneur, the future of dentistry, and Dental Entrepreneur. Write, become an author, get that expert status, and I'm here for you for that.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the invitation. And I already have my article underway. So, my guest today on the Tooth Sleuth podcast has been none other than Anne Duffy, the visionary CEO and founder of Dental Entrepreneur Media. Thank you so much, Anne. It's been my pleasure today.